Namaste. Welcome to the Advaita Channel, where today I'm going to read the 5th instalment from The Unborn, the Life and Teachings of Zen Master Bankei. This book's so close to my heart. If there are any problems with the audio or the video, if you can let me know. Namaste, Father. Namaste, Rashmi. I'm just going to play a short piece of music just while we settle.
جام عشق سرمستم دولم رفته از دستم به جز رندی و بلاشی نباشد هیچ سامان. اگر در آن خواب روزی دمی بی تو برآورم از آن مخلوق از آن ساعت از آن خواب پشیمانم. اگر دستم دهد روزی دمی با تو در این خلوت دامم زیر پایانم ای دستی برافشانم علای شمس تبریزی چنین مستم در این جز مستی و غلاشی هیچ نباشد دستانه. یکی جویم یکی دانم یکی بینم یکی خواهم یکی جویم یکی دانم یکی بینم یکی خواهم.
So I'll just read the last paragraph that we finished with last week, as it directly speaks about the unborn Buddha mind. The unborn Buddha mind deals freely and spontaneously with anything that presents itself to it. But if something should happen to make you change the Buddha mind into thought, then you run into trouble and lose that freedom. Let me give you an example. Suppose a woman is engaged in sewing something. A friend enters the room and begins speaking to her. As long as she listens to her friend and sews in the unborn, she has no trouble doing both. But if she gives her attention to her friend's words and a thought arises in her mind as she thinks about what to reply, her hands stop sewing. If she turns her attention to her sewing and thinks about that, she fails to catch everything her friend is saying, and the conversation does not proceed smoothly. In either case, her Buddha mind has slipped from the place of the unborn. She has transformed it into thought. As her thoughts fix upon one thing, they're blank to all others, depriving her mind of its freedom. And for me, this relates so clearly to Father's pointing on don't believe any thought, don't believe your next thought. Mujiji's pointing on don't buy any concept, because the moment we do, we're stepping out of the unborn. We jump into mind, and we lose our true connection. So continuing now in the words of Zen Master Bankei. Remember, these are transcripts just as we have transcripts of Mujiji's pointings, and very soon we'll have published transcripts of Ananta's pointings. These are just transcripts from another era, from 1622. Let me tell you about what happened when I was in Marugame in Sanuki province. As you know, Marugame is a castle town, and when I was there, many people came to listen to the talks. On one occasion, a lady showed up, accompanied by her maidservant and an elderly woman. The three of them listened and then left. Some time afterwards, the lady and the old woman came again. The lady said, "Before she met you, my elderly attendant was always a willful and disagreeable creature. She would lose her temper at the slightest pretext. But you know, it's been quite a while now since we heard your teaching. And from that time till the present day, she hasn't once been ill-tempered. In fact, she's grown most wise." Everything she says is sensible and sound. She puts me to shame with the example that she's set. I'm certain that the reason for the change in her is simply that she's taken your teaching straight to the heart. We owe it all to your influence. Such were her words, and from what I learned later, the old woman never strayed from the Buddha mind again. It's very clear what we need to do, isn't it? We must just listen. Take the teachings straight to our heart. We can't fail. They're beautiful. What I call the unborn is the Buddha mind. This Buddha mind is unborn, with a marvelous virtue of illuminative wisdom. In the unborn, all things fall right into place and remain in perfect harmony. When everything you do is done according to the unborn, the eye that sees others as they are opens in you, and you know in your own mind that everyone you see is a living Buddha. Just as Mujiji and Anantaji see everyone as a living Buddha, because their Buddha eye is opened. They have clear seeing. And we too can have this, if we just listen. That's the reason why once you live in the unborn, you will never fall back again into your old ways, just like the old woman of Sanuki. Once you know the great worth of the Buddha mind, you can't leave it for illusion again. But as long as you're ignorant of its great value, you will continue to create illusions for yourself in whatever you do, insignificant things included, and you will live as an unenlightened person. I notice that there are many ladies here today. Compared with men, you women tend to get excited easily. I love this. In this era in Japan, it was regarded that women weren't capable of becoming Buddhas, weren't capable of becoming enlightened. And actually, Sri Bankei was the very first to break this tradition and to tell women that indeed you can become enlightened. So let us enjoy his words here. Even unimportant things are enough to upset you and to turn your unborn Buddha mind into a fighting spirit, ignorant animal, or craving hungry ghost, submerging you in illusion and causing you to transmigrate into many different forms. You should pay particular attention to everything I say. I think that's quite reasonable. I think we should all pay particular attention, actually. In the houses with domestic help, servant boys and servant girls are employed in large numbers. Some among them are bound to be careless with things. Occasionally, treasured dishes or other articles are broken. Perhaps it is something not even worth mentioning, but in any case, you let the blood rush to your head. You lash out and scold the offender angrily. But no matter how prized the dish or the tea bowl may have been, it wasn't broken deliberately. It was an accident. And now there's nothing that can be done about it. Just the same, you fly into a rage and let the defilements from your self-centered passions transform the precious Buddha mind, given when you were born, into a fighting spirit. You can always buy another teacup. Tea tastes the same anyway, whether from an ordinary Amari teacup or from a priceless Korean tea bowl. You can drink it just as well from either one. But a temper, once lost, isn't easily undone. Now, if you really understand what I've been saying about the tea bowl, you should know, without my having to tell you about them one by one, that it's the same for everything else. Whatever happens, just don't turn your Buddha minds into fighting spirits by worrying over it. Don't change them into ignorance, or let your self-centered thoughts turn them into hungry ghosts. Then you will automatically be living in the unborn Buddha mind. You won't have any choice in the matter. Once you know the Buddha mind's great value, there's no way you can avoid dwelling in the unborn, even if you don't want to. I want to make you know how vitally important it is for you not to change your Buddha minds into the three poisons. So you will have to listen to me attentively and then be very careful that you don't transform your Buddha minds into something else. When I tell people about the unborn like this, they sometimes assume it is a teaching I came up with all by myself. But that's mistaken. If you look through the sutras and other Buddhist records, you'll find that the unborn was preached in the past in various ways. The patriarchs of the Zen school mentioned it. It was heard from the golden mouth of Shakyamuni himself. Even children have known of it. But it's always the words unborn, undying that you find. There's never any verification given to show just what this unborn, undying really is. I am the first to teach people by giving them proof of the unborn. It's understandable then that those who don't know this should make the mistake of thinking that I thought these words up by myself. As a young man striving to realize the Buddha mind, I tried my hand at koan study. I tried my hand at this too. I threw it out. I started with one koan My koan was, "Who am I?" And I said, "I don't ever need another koan than this. How could I possibly need another koan than who am I?" And with that and Sri Bankai's teachings, I came to Muji. So Bankai tried his hand at koans. I had interviews with Zen teachers and engaged in Zen dialogues with them in Chinese. I worked very diligently at it. But it is better for us Japanese to use the common language we speak every day when we ask questions having to do with the way. Since we aren't very good at Chinese, when we have to use it for such questions and answers, we have trouble expressing ourselves fully and saying just what we want to. But if we use our own everyday language and speak just the way we normally do, there's nothing at all we can't ask about. Instead of straining about worrying about how to ask something in Chinese, we should ask our questions in a language we can use freely, free of the burdens and constraints of a foreign language. Of course, if we couldn't attain realization unless we used Chinese, I would be the first to say use it. But the fact is that we can ask about the way and attain it without any trouble at all by using our own language. You must remember this, and whenever you have something to ask me, feel no hesitation. I don't care what it is. Ask it just the way you want to, in your own words, and I'll help you clear it up. Since you're able to resolve things in that way, what could be as useful to you and convenient to use as the ordinary Japanese you speak every day? Really, what he's referring to here is very much the use of everyday language, just as we do in satsang. We don't use fancy terminology, we don't have to mask anything, we don't have to big it up. These teachings are so pure and so true, so direct. We want to transmit them as quickly and clearly and directly as possible, heart to heart. And just as in satsang, we come and we ask our masters a question from our heart to their heart, so too, Sri Bankei taught like this, when all around him were giving talks, sitting on the throne, just as he did. The difference was there was no asking a question. To ask a question, one had to queue and to wait and to maybe see their teacher when the opportunity arose. But with Sri Bankei, even in a crowd of thousands, they could come forward with a question and the answer would be shared with everyone, not given in private as was the tradition. So carrying on. While I was studying with Dosha in Nagasaki, a letter was sent to China to the priest Ingen, inviting him to come to Nagasaki. I was one of those who took part in the discussions leading up to the issuance of that invitation. Unfortunately, I happened to be visiting Dosha when Ingen finally arrived. As his boat sailed into the port entrance, all the monks in Dosha's assembly went down to the quay to welcome him. But when Ingen disembarked the ship, I knew the moment I set eyes on him that he wasn't a man of the unborn. So I never bothered to go to him for instruction. People generally have the wrong idea about living and dying at will. They think it means that someone decides on one day that he will die on the next, or that he predicts the day and the month in the following year when he is to die, and then does indeed die a natural death on that date. Or they think it means the ability to extend one's lifetime so many days or so many months. Such are the notions many people have. I myself won't say that they aren't examples of living and dying at will. Obviously, in a sense, such people do live and die very much at will. But since their ability is the result of training and practice, it is sometimes seen even in those whose religious eye has not yet been opened. So here he's referring to what we know in the Indian traditions as siddhis. And these things aren't the goal, none of these things. We have only one direct wish: to live in the unborn Buddha mind. Even some non-religious people may know when they're going to die. But in such cases, since their religious eye is not opened, they don't have the slightest idea of its real meaning. A man of the unborn is beyond living and dying, samsara. What I mean is, by this, someone who is unborn is also undying. So he is beyond both birth and death. What I call living and dying at will is when someone dies without being troubled by life and death. The continuous succession of birth, death, that is samsaric existence. Moreover, living and dying is taking place at every instant, throughout the 24 hours of the day. Dying does not occur only once in your life when you cease breathing. When you're living without being concerned about life or death, you're always living in such a way that whenever death does come, even right now, at this moment, it's no great matter. Now that's what I call living and dying at will. It means living confirmed in your unborn Buddha mind. To make a declaration that you'll die at a certain time on a certain fixed day, and to have that on your mind, can you imagine how confining and unfree that would be? You often hear religious people talking about samsara, or living and dying, being the same as nirvana. They make this mistake because they always have with them, I beg your pardon, they make this mistake because they haven't grasped yet that the unborn Buddha mind they always have with them sets everything right this very day by means of the unborn. To look for samsara is nirvana anywhere else and involve yourself in words and letters is pointless. What they're doing is changing the unborn Buddha mind into the thought samsara is nirvana, and senselessly spending every second of the day and night without a moment's rest, confined within samsara. Since the Buddha mind takes care of everything by means of the unborn, it has nothing to do with samsara or nirvana. It has nothing to do with heaven and hell. Seen from the place of the unborn, both of them are like shadows in a dream. But because the Buddha mind has the marvellous dexterity it does, if a person who until just yesterday was busily engaged in samsara should today realize his mistake, and henceforth stop challenging and changing his Buddha mind into the three poisons, he will henceforth dwell in the Buddha mind free of all concern with such things as samsara. When the time comes for his physical elements to disperse in death, he will give himself completely to the dispersal and die without regret or attachment. A person like that is living the truth of samsara is nirvana, living it, and is at the same time living and dying at will. Because they're living in freedom and they're dying in freedom. It's the unborn, and to reside in the unborn, to rest in the unborn Buddha mind, to rest in the Absolute as awareness. This is our unborn Buddha mind. This is freedom. This is living the truth. Here, I always urge people simply to live in the unborn Buddha mind. I don't try to make anyone do anything else. We don't have any special rules. But since everyone got together and decided they wanted to spend 6 hours each day, a period of 12 sticks of incense. They used incense as timers in Japan, so a stick of Japanese incense typically lasts 30 minutes, so hence he refers this way. So since they decided they wanted to spend 6 hours each day doing zazen, I let them do as they wish. That amount of time has been set aside for zazen. But the unborn Buddha mind has no connection with those sticks of incense. It's just being at home in the Buddha mind, not straying into illusion, and not seeking enlightenment beyond that. Just sit in the Buddha mind. Stand in the Buddha mind. Do everything in the Buddha mind. Then you'll be functioning as a living Buddha in all that you do in your daily life. There's nothing further. That's a beautiful way for us to live. Now, in Zazen, it's a matter of the Buddha mind sitting at rest. It's the Buddha mind doing continuous Zazen. Zazen isn't limited to the time you sit. That's why around here, when he says around here, he means in his temple, actually. Around here. He makes no big deal about it. Around here, if people have something to do whilst they're sitting, they're free to get up and do it. It's up to them. Whatever they've a mind to do. Some of them will do kinhin, which is walking meditation in Zen Buddhism, for one stick of incense, 30 minutes. They can't just continue walking. So then they sit down, and for another stick of incense, they do Zazen. They can't be sleeping all the time, so they get up. They can't talk constantly, so they stop talking and do some Zazen. They aren't bound by any set rules. In recent times, wherever you go, you find that Zen teachers use old tools when they deal with pupils. They seem to think they can't do the job without them. They're unable to teach directly by thrusting themselves forward and confronting students without their tools. Those eyeless bonzes with their tools then. If they don't have their implements to help them, they aren't up to handling people. I think we can see what he thought of them. What's worse, they tell practitioners that unless they can raise a great ball of doubt and then break through it, there can't be any progress in Zen. When he refers to a great ball of doubt, he's referring to koan practice again, where the whole goal of koan practice is kind of to drive the mind so crazy that it just drops. But it goes through this whole process of trying to generate answers and going around in circles and looking and raising questions, seeking answers that cannot be found because they just don't exist, until it raises a ball of doubt. And for some it may take a lifetime, for some many, many years. And it's never been said that it can be done in a moment. It's never been said that enlightenment is possible right now in Zen, until Bankei came and said that we could do it through this simple means of living as the unborn Buddha mind. Instead of teaching them to live by the unborn Buddha mind, they start by forcing them to raise this ball of doubt any way they can. They've turned their Buddha minds into balls of doubt. It's absolutely wrong. I was so happy when I read this, when I went through this very experience with koan practice. And this is absolutely wrong. It cannot be like this. How can thousands of people in Japan and in Zen and all these Zen masters, how could they be wrong? And I had to question all of that and stand up and come to Muji, where it was very easy to discover how wrong it was for this one and for so many more. Absolutely wrong. My religion has nothing to do with either self-power or other power. It's beyond them both. My proof is this. While you face me and listen to me say this, if somewhere a sparrow chirps, or a crow caws, or a man or a woman says something, or the wind rustles the leaves, though you sit there without any intent to listen, you will hear and distinguish each sound. Because it isn't yourself that is doing the listening. It isn't self-power. It's referring to awareness. It's awareness that's listening, awareness that's hearing. On the other hand, it wouldn't do you any good if you had someone else hear and distinguish the sounds for you. So it isn't other power. And again, how could someone else describe to us what we're hearing? That's the reason why I can say that my teaching has nothing to do with self-power or other power, and is beyond them both. When you're listening like this in the unborn, each and every sound is heard just as it occurs. And all other things as well, in just the same way, are perfectly well taken care of in the unborn. Anyone who lives his life in the unborn, whoever he may be, will find this to be true. No one who lives in the unborn is concerned with self or other. He is beyond them both. This feels a very nice place for us to finish reading today, and I'd just like to finish with a few minutes of silence and to read you a short contemplation that I wrote on the unborn. I'd be very happy if you would join me. So as we sit, let's take these teachings of Sri Bankei into our hearts. Just as the elderly lady said that her maidservant had done, changed her life, how her behaviour had changed, how everything that she had been fell away, and she became so happy. Let us not be concerned with living or with dying. You are unborn. Before everything. You are pure. Untouched awareness. Without listening, you hear everything. Without looking, you see everything. You are pure. Untouched awareness. You are Buddha mind. Don't go to thought. You need nothing. Nothing is missing. You are silence. All sound happens in you. Remain empty. Like the sky. You are neutral. No clouds can touch you. Rest in this place. It is your natural state. You are the peace that you have been seeking. You are peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your presence. Mujiji Ki Jai. Anantaji Ki Jai. Sangaji Ki Jai. Let us all go forth and live in the unborn Buddha mind. Have a good day, beloveds.